So it's the penultimate weekend in the Premier League, match day 37. We got games that are going to determine the relegation battle, games that are going to determine the fight for Europe, and we also got the FA Cup final as well. So, hey man, important weekend for a lot of teams in the Premier League. So I'm going to give my predictions, I'm going to give my thoughts, and let's get into it. So let's start off with the Friday game. Aston Villa versus Liverpool, 4th place versus 5th place. Now, at this point, pretty much both sides can be sure that they've secured Champions League football. Obviously, mathematically, there is still a chance. However, with the goal difference for each teams compared to the teams below them, it's pretty much set that, these teams are going to make Champions League football, you understand? For Aston Villa, they're coming off a draw against Burnley. You know what I'm saying? A draw against Burnley. But once again, we can probably put that down to their minds are looking at the Europa League final. You know what I'm saying? The Europa League final is this coming Wednesday against Freiburg. They definitely have, one man on that. I won't be surprised if Unai Emery plays a rotated side once again. And we all know what happened the last time Unai Emery played a rotated side in the Premier League before a Europa League tie. They put on the absolutely shambolic performance at home against Tottenham. So for me personally, I have to go for a Liverpool win. Liverpool, they aren't in any other competitions. This will be a good chance for them to just sort of, have good momentum, just get wins under the belt, you know what I'm saying? Just get wins under the belt, have good momentum. They don't have any other focus. I'm hearing that Mo Salah is due to return for his final away game for Liverpool. Isak's going to return as well. So they have more firepower, more options up top. So it has to be a Liverpool win, you know what I'm saying? It has to be a Liverpool win. Like I said last time out, they showed great fight against Man United. They're coming off that draw to Chelsea, so a loss to United, drop points to Chelsea, with that crazy Enzo Fernandez goal. So I think Liverpool, they're going to be determined to, bounce back from those two results and get the win here. So me personally, here I'm saying Aston Villa 0, Liverpool 2. I think Liverpool, with the return of Salah, with the return of Isak, I think they'll have too much for Aston Villa. So I'm saying 2-0 Liverpool. So let's move on to possibly the biggest game of the weekend, the FA Cup final at Wembley, Chelsea versus Manchester City. Now, me personally, I can only see this game going one way in terms of the dynamics. I think we all know as football fans how this is going to go. Man City are going to dominate the ball. They're going to have possession. And then Chelsea are going to look to hit on the brakes. They're going to look to hit on the brakes in that transition. And the transitions for Chelsea could be very, very deadly simply because I'm hearing rumours that Rodri will not be fit and available. Same with Nico Gonzalez as well. So Man City, just like they were against Crystal Palace on the weekend, or in midweek, they're going to be very lightweight in midfield. I'm hearing it might be a Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden pivot once again, just like against Palace. And we all saw what happened. If you watched the game against Palace, we all saw what happened in those opening minutes. City were very, very vulnerable to those transitions. You know what I'm saying? The lack of, protection in the midfield being a bit lightweight, it could work to Chelsea's advantage. Guys like Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer might have the ability to, find pockets of space in between that midfield and the defense, to actually cause damage. João Pedro as well. They do have the ability to find those pockets and cause damage. And for Chelsea as well, they're coming off that impressive draw against Liverpool. Hey man, they could have even won that game, to be honest. They created so many chances. I think Chelsea have really got something with this new 3 at the back formation. And as well, their players are coming back at the right time. You know what I'm saying? Levi Colwill looked very, very solid, very, very composed in his return at Anfield. Reece James came on and he just looked class like he always does. I think Cucurella down that left, he looks very, very good as well. And I think, having a midfield of, whether it's Caicedo and Lavia as the two, as the double pivot, or Caicedo and Andre Santos as the double pivot, I think it will be a tough task for Man City to break Chelsea down in this FA Cup final, you understand? I feel like Chelsea really have something. But for City, they're coming off back-to-back 3-0 wins, you know what I'm saying? Back-to-back 3-0 wins, 3-0 win at Brentford, 3-0 win at Palace. However, the results were comfortable in the end, but City did start very, very slowly in those games, you know what I'm saying? They also actually started very slowly in the Carabao Cup final against Arsenal. So maybe if Chelsea could hit City early, maybe grab a goal, maybe João Pedro or Cole Palmer could be clinical, it could be a difficult day for City. But for City, we saw the return of Josko Gvardiol. He was very, very good on his return. You know what I'm saying? Phil Foden put on a very good performance as well. Erling Haaland, he's rested. He's ready to go. I don't think he's ever scored in a final for Man City, so it'll be a good time for him to get on the score sheet. Ryan Cherky came on against Crystal Palace. He was saucing. He was oozing. Semenyo, he got his first goal in a while as well. So, hey man, both teams are coming into this game, coming into this FA Cup final, you know, with certain question marks, but also in very, very good form. You know what I'm saying? Both are in very, very good form. For me, it's literally just on the day what type of, you know, team shows up in both respects. What type of Man City team shows up, what type of Chelsea team shows up. You know what I'm saying? If Chelsea show up hungry and willing to fight, you know, they could really do something. On the other hand, if Man City turn up, you know, and they're, you know, the football, the way they're playing is clicking, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can watch Man City and you can be like, all right, cool, they're in the mood today, you know what I'm saying? They're in the mood today, they created chances, things will click. However, there's other times with Man City where it's just like the ball's moving a little bit too slowly, you know what I'm saying? A lot of the ball's moving a bit too slowly, there's no cutting edge. I feel like against Brentford, at the start, no cutting edge until Doku came into life. Sort of similar with Crystal Palace. There was a bit of lack of cutting edge, but Phil Foden came into life and played Semenyo with that lovely back heel, you know what I'm saying? So it literally just depends on what sort of sides turn up for that Wembley showdown. But I think I'm going to back Man City. I'm going to back Man City. They're in the midst of it. They're in the midst of the title race. I think they'll be hungry for this FA Cup. They'll need this FA Cup. Potentially Pep Guardiola's last season. You know, Chelsea have their caretaker manager, but still, I still wouldn't play that factor because we all know what Chelsea can do in these finals. You know what I'm saying? Chelsea are like the ultimate party poopers. But I'm going to back Man City here. I'm going to say Chelsea 1, Man City 2 at Wembley. So let's go to the game that will determine pretty much who's going down in the Premier League. Let's go to St. James's Park. And we got Newcastle versus West Ham. Now, West Ham, we all know the Hammers, they need a win. There's no excuses now. If they fail to win at St. James's Park, it pretty much confirms their relegation status. They're coming off the back of that heartbreaking loss at home to Arsenal. We all know that VAR decision where it was Pablo who held down David Raya's arm. They thought they'd equalise through Callum Wilson. Whole stadium going crazy. They thought they'd got a valuable point, a very good point against the potential Premier League champions, but it got wiped out for a foul on David Raya, you know what I'm saying? But West Ham, they did show life in that game, and I do feel like they'll come into this game at St. James's Park with, you know, with a chip on their shoulder and motivated, you know what I'm saying? They did look like a team who they're ready to fight, you know what I'm saying? They're ready to fight. They're ready to... Everyone's down for the cause and they're ready to, you know, help West Ham stay in the Premier League. Certain players on that team are linked with moves away, so hey, it's an opportunity for them to put their names in the shop window also. I'm hearing a lot of stuff about Mateus Fernandes, about certain Premier League clubs. I'm hearing Arsenal, I'm hearing Man United are considering him, as an option. Obviously, Jarrod Bowen, he's been linked for a move away for about 3 years now. I'm hearing also Castellanos, he's linked with a move away. So I feel like, you know, this West Ham team, there's a lot of players who are going to want to prove a point against Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? They're going to want to prove a point. I think they'll come in, you know, fired up after that Arsenal game. I feel like that Arsenal game, even though they did lose it at home, it will give them belief that, yo, we just went up against the best team in the league. We had them on ropes. Yo, we can do Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? A Newcastle side who don't have anything to play for. A Newcastle side who have only won one game in their last 6. And to be honest, this season, it's been a horrible season for Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? From start to finish, from the Isak saga, from, you know, getting Johan Visser, but then him getting an injury early on, Voltamada starting well, but then ultimately fading away, them having to play Gordon through the middle, yeah, all the drop points, the 7-2 thrashing to Barcelona. It's just been horrible. It's just been a horrible season for Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? And now, just to compound it, They're out. They're out of Europe. Then they're not chasing Europe. And plus, all their best players are rumoured to leave, you know what I'm saying? Apparently, Gordon to Bayern Munich is pretty much a done deal. Apparently, there's a pre-agreement there. We've been hearing the Tonali rumours, the Guimaraes movements. I'm hearing Livramento might be on the move. I'm hearing there's some interest for Lewis Hall as well. So, hey, I don't know what Newcastle's going to look like next season, you know what I'm saying? This was supposed to be a thing with Newcastle where they were supposed to take that leap to the next level, you understand? But due to FFP and all of that, it sort of stopped them in their tracks, you know what I'm saying? FFP has well and truly screwed Newcastle, in my opinion, because, you know, they had the takeover, they were willing to spend money, willing to attract certain players, willing to get the project rolling, sort of like Man City and Chelsea did all them years ago. But FFP has truly, in my opinion, has truly screwed them. Like, they've had to sell players in order to balance the books. They can't buy the players that they wanted, you know what I'm saying? We were all laughing at Newcastle last summer when, you know, so many players rejected them, you know what I'm saying? Newcastle, so many players, they went after this player, they rejected them. This player, they rejected them. It just seems like no top talent wants to go to Newcastle, whether it's the actual club. They're a big club, but maybe it's just a case of nobody wants to, no top player, especially the foreign players, don't really want to live up north in Newcastle, you know what I'm saying? So they will struggle, at least with, you know, when Chelsea were coming up, you know, Chelsea were in London. So the foreign players were like, all right, cool, we'll come to Chelsea. They got Jose Mourinho, you know, they could attract players. With Man City, yeah, they're in Manchester, but, you know, the club project was attractive. You know, guys like Aguero, Silva, Yaya Toure, you know what I'm saying? They could attract those sort of players. It just seems that Newcastle, for some reason, just don't have that same pull as when Chelsea and Man City were starting their projects. But, yeah, so for this game, relegation battle, I think West Ham with their backs to the wall and Newcastle with having nothing to play for and just having a bad season, I'm going to say Newcastle 1, West Ham 3. I think West Ham will get the job done, which is essential ahead of Tottenham's game when they travel to Stamford Bridge on Tuesday. Now let's talk about the race for European football. Let's start with Brentford versus Crystal Palace. Brentford versus Crystal Palace. Brentford, last week, they lost 3-0 to Man City, which ultimately saw them fall below Brighton in that race for Europe, you know what I'm saying? In that race for the Conference League, they went from 7th, slipped down to 8th with Brighton winning at home, you know what I'm saying? But Brentford, I think Brentford, 3 p.m. kickoff. 3 p.m. kickoff, Igor Thiago. We all know what this guy's about, you know what I'm saying? We all know what this guy's about. I back him to score in this game, especially with Crystal Palace sort of treating these last 2 games as just sort of warm-up games, ramp-up games for their Europa Conference League final against Rayo Vallecano. I've been hearing even rumours with Glasner saying that, yo, he's probably going to play a weakened side on the last day against Arsenal potentially, which could help the Gunners in their bid for a title. But let's stay on Brentford. Brentford, like I said, coming off that 3-0 loss, I do think they'll beat Palace here, you know what I'm saying? With a Palace side, nothing really to play for. Brentford, they're at home. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff. For some reason, Brentford, they love their 3 p.m. kickoffs at home. Anytime, it feels like anytime they're on TV, anytime they're on TV, whether it's a 12:30 on a Saturday, at home to Fulham, they draw 0-0. Or whether it's a, you know, a 2 p.m. kickoff Super Sunday against Man City or something like that, they go on and lose, you know what I'm saying? But Brentford at 3 p.m, hey man, they're the best team in the Premier League. Brentford at 3 p.m, and Igor Thiago, that's the most informed player when it comes to a 3 p.m. kickoff, especially at home. So I back Brentford to beat Crystal Palace, especially with Palace, like I just said, treating these last 2 games as warm-up games for their Europa Conference League final against Vallecano. So I'm going Brentford 2, Palace 0. And then we go over to the team that I just mentioned, leapfrogged Brentford with their 3-0 win over Wolves last week. Hey man, Leeds themselves, they're coming off of, you know, a draw to Spurs, Calvert-Lewin penalty. However, they're safe in the Premier League. So I back Brighton to win this game. I just feel like sometimes in football, the team with who's got the most to prove, they're the ones that are going to come out more hungry, play with more fire and get the job done. I feel like Brighton are going to get the job done, you know what I'm saying? Brighton are actually in good form in the Premier League, very good form. There's no wonder why they found themselves in this position. I remember, you know, maybe just 2-3 months ago, they weren't really in these conversations. Maybe they were like outsiders with the likes of, you know, Sunderland, you know, outsiders. Sunderland and Fulham outsiders for, European football, but now they're really in the thick of it. They've actually won 7 of their last 10, so they're in very, very good form, Brighton. So I back them to win. I back them to go to Ellen Road and get the job done, you know what I'm saying? So especially with Leeds already, having secured safety, secured survival, I think Brighton will go to Ellen Road and, get the job done. So I'm saying Leeds 1, Brighton 3. So let's go to Old Trafford now with Man United versus Nottingham Forest. When it comes to Nottingham Forest, they've had a disappointing end to the season, especially with that second leg of the Europa League semi-final, losing 4-0 in the manner that they did. It was very, very disappointing for the club, you know what I'm saying? I know after that 1-0 first leg win, they definitely had aspirations. They definitely thought that, they could get the job done and they should be the ones playing Freiburg in that Europa League final this coming Wednesday. However, it just didn't happen for them. Villa were just a better team on the night. Nottingham Forest, they did have injuries, like I said, to Gibbs White, Ola Aina, Callum Hudson-Odoi, which is very, very unfortunate for them. But on the night, Villa just absolutely steamrolled them, you know what I'm saying? Villa steamrolled them. And even in their last game at home to Newcastle, I expected them to, have a resounding, comeback, bounce back from that, put on a show in front of their fans, but they failed to beat a Newcastle side with nothing to play for. They did draw 1-1. So here in this game against Man United at Old Trafford, I only see this game going one way. I think Michael Carrick's sort of job on the line, but he's trying to show the owners, he's trying to impress, he's trying to show the owners that, I deserve the permanent job, you know what I'm saying? I think he's done very, very well since he's come in. I think there's been a few concerns in some of the games that he's lost. I feel like some of his substitutions in game, I've questioned them slightly, but I think overall, especially coming from Ruben Amorim, I feel like he's instilled just the simplicity for Man United, you know what I'm saying? 4-2-3-1, he's instilled Kobbie Mainoo back into the fray. He's instilled Aiden Heaven in there. Aiden Heaven's playing really, really well now. And I feel like United, they seem like a cohesive unit that could, maybe if Carrick's in charge next year, a few more signings, they could actually go back to where they were a few years ago. Maybe not challenging for the Premier League title, but they can go back to, being a cup side, being a side that wins a Carabao Cup, wins an FA Cup, you know what I'm saying? Is going to the knockout rounds in European competitions, because it felt like they were there a few years ago and then it just started to nosedive, you know what I'm saying? It felt like they were there, the Carabao Cup win under Ten Hag, then the FA Cup final against Man City the first time, which they lost, but then they beat Man City in the FA Cup final the following year despite finishing 8th. But I feel like Michael Carrick, he's just come in, he's simplified it, and he's trying to show the owners that, I'm the man to take this team forward with a few new signings. I feel like, Man United could go back to being, top 4 side competing for trophies, you know what I'm saying? This is also a great opportunity for Bruno Fernandes to, break that Premier League assist record and also stamp his claim as Player of the Year. I'm pretty sure he already got right as Player of the Year, but now he's staking his claim for PFA Player of the Year. You know what I'm saying? PFA Player of the Year. Me personally, I think he deserves it. I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been a real talisman for Man United. I think his game has really, really matured over this season. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in the past we've criticised Bruno Fernandes for certain things. His petulance, his habit of, sometimes giving the ball away cheaply, you know what I'm saying? Giving the ball away cheaply and just hoofing the ball sometimes, instead of playing the easy passes. But I feel like his game has really, really matured. And I feel like this season especially has sort of justified them keeping Bruno Fernandes, because a lot of people, including myself, I'll be real, thought that they should have cashed in on him. 100 million offer from Saudi. If I was in charge, I probably would have cashed in on him. But it shows that, Bruno, he's still the guy for Man United, you know what I'm saying? He's still the guy. And even if he's not the guy to, bring Man United back to the glory days, I do feel like he's a player that will ease the transition. He'll help the young players, instill that winning mentality in the young players. And then by the time, the young players like Amenu, like Heaven, like Ahmad, by the time they start ascending, they get to that 26, 27, 25, 26, 27 age, they've learned from Bruno Fernandes. I feel like he's sort of like the perfect transition player to help the young players, elevate that mindset, elevate that mentality, so that when the young players are at a certain age, they're ready to compete. You know what I'm saying? He's just that perfect sort of transition transition player, which is unfortunate for Bruno because he probably does deserve more trophies after all he's dedicated for Man United. But it just turns out that, you know, the timelines of when he signed for United, it just didn't match up, you know what I'm saying? Certain things just didn't go his way. Certain managers, it just didn't happen for him. But he can definitely be sort of that, you know what I'm saying, sort of that guidance for young players. And then, yeah, before those young players attempt to take Man United back to the glory days themselves. But yeah, it's a good chance for Bruno Fernandes to, you know, get that Premier League assist record. He should get it, you know what I'm saying? 2 games left. I'm pretty sure it's 3 assists, 2 games left. And against the Nottingham Forest side with nothing to play for, with a lot of players missing, I back him to, you know, get 1 or 2 assists here. So I'm saying Man United 3, Nottingham Forest 0. Now we move on to Everton versus Sunderland. Now, when we talk about these two teams, these are two teams that a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, had real aspirations for Europe, you know what I'm saying? However, both teams have went on bad runs of late, and they kind of just find themselves sort of being mid-table, being out of that race for European football. Everton, let's start with Everton. They've went 5 games without a win, you know what I'm saying? 5 games without a win. They actually haven't won a game since that 3-0 game against Chelsea. That 3-0 game against Chelsea, they were brilliant against Chelsea, absolutely destroyed them, but they have not won a game since, which has seen them slip down the table. Sunderland as well, they've only won 2 games of their last 7, you know what I'm saying? 2 games of their last 7. However, when it does come to Sunderland, they were very, very impressive against Man United last week. I do feel like they were very, very unlucky not to come away with the win. In my opinion, they battered United from minute 0 to minute 90, you know what I'm saying? Their midfield in particular, their midfield and Brian Brobby in particular that day, so impressive. The way Brobby was holding the ball up, bringing people into play, the way he was running channels, I think he was amazing. Xhaka was doing what Xhaka does, being the captain, being the enforcer, keeping everything together. Enzo Lafay picking up pockets of space, you know, finding people, creating chances. But in my opinion, the man of the match for them last week was Siddiqui, you know what I'm saying? Siddiqui, he's only 21 years old. I'm not going to be surprised in the next 2 or 3 years he gets a big move to a big club, because what I was seeing from Siddiqui against United, very, very impressed. Just dynamic, mobile, but also had the technical aspects on point. Just knew when to play 2-touch, 1-touch, you know, knew when to drive forward, was strong in the tackle, you know, could press high, could really carry the ball, drive the ball forward, move the team forward. I was very, very impressed with him. For this game, I'm predicting that both teams are potentially going to cancel each other out. Everton are coming off their 2-2 draw against Crystal Palace, and I feel like it'll be a similar game at the Hill Dickinson for me as well. So in this game, I'm going to go Everton 1, Sunderland 1. The penultimate game is Fulham versus Wolves. I'm pretty sure it's at the Molineux. There's not really much to say about Wolves. They're already down. They're already relegated. As for Fulham, they're another team. Their name was in and around that European race, but after, you know, a slump in form, after very inconsistent performances, they've found themselves with, you know, Everton and Sunderland just sort of in that middle of the pack region, not really able to get European football this year. They have had injuries to the likes of Iwobi, which has obviously not helped. But, you know, there were certain games which, you know, they've drawn or they've lost, where you look at it and you go back and you say, they should have probably won those games. However, after 2 back-to-back defeats, I back Fulham to, you know, get a result. I'm pretty sure Marco Silva's not going to allow this team to, you know, lose 3 in a row or drop points in 3 games in a row, especially against this already relegated Wolves side. I don't think it'll be the prettiest from Fulham, but I do think they'll get the job done. I'm just going to say a nice standard. Wolves 0, Fulham 2. And for the last game, let's talk about the champions-elect who play on Monday Night Football. It's Arsenal versus Burnley. Now, it would be absolutely comical if Arsenal somehow managed to drop points to already relegated Burnley, you know what I'm saying? Me personally, I know what the table says. I know the table says that Wolves are bottom of the league, but in my opinion, from what I've seen with my own 2 eyes, Burnley, for me, have been the worst team in the Premier League. Like, if this was Wolves, I would back Wolves to get a result over Arsenal, over Burnley, you know what I'm saying? I would have more faith in Wolves, me personally. In fact, Wolves did get a result against Arsenal. Wolves did get a result against Arsenal. I remember it was the Gabriel Raya mix-up when they both collided and then allowed the Wolves player to put the ball in the back of the net, and Wolves actually did get a point off of Arsenal. But in terms of Burnley, I just don't see it. Maybe Kyle Walker can, roll back the years. Maybe that, City connection might, fuel him with a bit of motivation. Maybe a guy like Jaden Anthony can cause a threat. But I don't really see it for Burnley, you know what I'm saying? I just think this is going to be a standard win for Arsenal. They're at the Emirates, doesn't have to be pretty. Maybe a little goal from a set piece to set them off, and then maybe a nice little works goal from open play from, a Gyökeres or a Bukayo Saka. The only thing I have to say for Arsenal is that Ben White did get injured, so expect Mosquera to play right back. None of this Declan Rice playing at fullback, man. Because if Arteta somehow manages to overcomplicate this, and bad things start to happen to Arsenal, my goodness, I better not see like Declan Rice at right back and then a midfield of like Lewis Skelly, Zubimendi, Kai Havertz in the 10. No. Just keep it simple, I tell you. You know what I'm saying? Just keep it simple. Just go Declan Rice, keep Lewis Skelly in the team. He's been playing well. Put Mosquera at right back. I think Odegaard was very, very good against West Ham when he came on. You should probably start Odegaard. You know what I'm saying? Maybe start Odegaard on the left side if you want to play Trossard because he got the winner. Saka on the right. Gyökeres up top. Calafiori is doubtful. Apparently he's got a certain injury, but I think he still will play. Obviously, that back triangle of Gabriel, Saliba, Raya, solid. I'm just going to say 2-0 win for Arsenal. They should get the win. And then if they win this, like I said before earlier on, apparently Glasnow's going to play a weakened side against Arsenal on the last day. So this win will really, really feel like for Arsenal that, Premier League is basically ours, especially on Tuesday. Man City travel to Bournemouth, travel to the Vitality on Tuesday. If Man City drop points, then I'm pretty sure if Arsenal win this, Man City drop points at Bournemouth, Arsenal are confirmed Premier League champions after 22 years. You know what I'm saying? It's been a long wait, but I think this is their time. You know what I'm saying? I think this is their time. There's been ups and downs this season for Arsenal, but I feel like it's going to end with them being Premier League champions and them playing in that Champions League final. They've got that Champions League final coming up in 2 weeks. But yeah, man, that's the predictions for Matchday 37 plus the FA Cup final. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. And yeah, man, we'll see what happens this weekend.